Hey there, Parker Reed here, and welcome to PR Media, your home for everything movies and music through my eyes. And I just got finished watching all 12 Friday the 13th movies for the first time. Friday the 13th is a film series that spans from 1980 to 2009 with 12 films in total, and it stars serial killer Jason Voorhees as he terrorizes the campers of Camp Crystal Lake, as well as various other places like Manhattan and eventually space. So it's an interesting series and I have thoughts on it. So the reason I decided to embark on this glorious journey was last week the Friday the 13th Blu-ray box set came out. I've never seen any of them in full, so I thought this would be a good chance to kind of watch all the different movies. And look at this really cool Shout Factory box set. I mean, that's really cool design, and all of them are housed in individual Blu-ray cases. So over the past 4 days, I've watched all 12 movies, and I definitely have thoughts on all of them, so I want to go through all of them very, very, very briefly, so you guys stick around, and then we'll kind of sum up the series as a whole. So to start things off, we have Friday the 13th, the original from 1980, and going into this one, I thought it was going to be dull. A lot of people said it was slow, and Jason isn't in this movie. No hockey mask, Jason Voorhees. But overall, I found this one pretty enjoyable. I liked the plot in this movie. It actually has a plot for what it is. Sure, Friday the 13th was just made to cash in on the Halloween franchise, but this first one had an interesting story. I liked the ending with Mrs. Voorhees coming and actually being the killer. It was an interesting twist, and overall I liked this movie a lot. It wasn't my favorite in the series, but the debut from 1980, pretty solid. Coming up next, in 1981, we have Friday the 13th Part 2, and I did not love this one. It does the thing that I don't like that some popular movies do, is where they take the person who survived at the first one and then instantly kill him off in the next movie for shock value. I didn't like that, and it made me view this series in a lesser light. But there was some interesting twists towards the end with Jason's mother's head and the final girl kind of talking to him as the mother to distract him. I thought that was interesting, but overall I didn't think this was as good as the first one. Next up, we have Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D, and this movie was obviously made just for 3D in mind. There's so many sequences where people are just kind of reaching towards the camera and then stuff is falling. There's a yo-yo. This movie was just made to cash in on the 3D craze at the time. And this is the first appearance of actual Jason in the hockey mask, because in the second one he's just a kid and he just has a sack over his head. So it's nice to see him get his mask. Sure, it was a bit cringe because just the fat kid in this movie gives him the mask, but overall this one was pretty boring and pretty cringe-worthy. Coming up next, we have 1984's Friday the 13th. The Final Chapter. Yeah, The Final Chapter. But this is one of my favorites in the series, actually. It has a very young Corey Feldman, peak Stand By Me in the Goonies era Corey Feldman, and it takes everything away from Camp Crystal Lake for the most part. It's mostly in a house, and the kills are more creative in this movie, and I like the twist ending where Corey Feldman's just fucking going ham on Jason Voorhees, and it's kind of setting him up to be the new Jason Voorhees. Sure, it's schlocky as hell, but it's a really good Friday the 13th movie. Up next, we have the black sheep of the Friday the 13th franchise. It's Part 5. A New Beginning, and this is the only one that doesn't have Jason Voorhees in it as the killer and the main protagonist besides the first one. He's in that super briefly. But as Tommy being set up as the new killer, and there's just an imposter for the rest of the movie, and by the end of it, it sets him up to be the new Jason Voorhees. I like that ending. I thought it could have been an interesting twist, but as soon as we go along, they get rid of that. Up next, we have 1986's Friday the 13th Part 6. Jason Lives, and this movie basically does away with number 5. It acts like it didn't exist and pretty much bridges 4 to 6 with Tommy being the main protagonist again, and he wants to burn Jason's body so he can kind of get rid of that and have that little bit of closure in his mind. But even though in Part 5 they say he was already cremated, so of course they do away with that one. But I thought this one was creative. It's shot really interestingly, because a lot of the Friday the 13th movies can feel a little flat, but this one was interestingly shot, and I overall like this one a lot. I would highly recommend Part 6. And in 1988, that's when things start to get really weird. We got Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood. And this one is a typical Friday the 13th movie, except for the final girl has superpowers for some reason. She's got telepathy and she's kicking Jason's ass with the Force, basically. I have no idea what they were going for with this one, but they kind of act like it doesn't exist anyway. So, enter the schlock. Because in 1989 we got Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. That sounds like a comedy title, and this movie is pretty much a comedy. It's Jason kicking ass on a boat, and then he kicks some ass in New York, and then he melts with toxic waste. That's it. And I think my least favorite Friday the 13th movie in the franchise goes to 1993's Jason Goes to Hell, The Final Friday, because they basically make Jason out to be this slug monster that can move from body to body, and that's how Jason keeps on living on. And then he gets dragged to hell at the end, kind of like Sam Raimi's Drag Me to Hell movie. What the fuck was this movie? Why did it even get made? I have no idea why this exists. I wish I could forget it. And then we reached the schlock peak in 2002 with Jason X, Evil Gets an Upgrade. I remember seeing clips of this when I was a kid and wondering what the fuck it was back in the day. Basically, like, Jason gets frozen when he's trying to kill the scientist, and he ends up on a spaceship and ends up battling a sex robot, and she kicks his ass until he gets an upgrade, and then they crash into the earth. That's basically what you're getting, and that's the sex robot if you didn't get that. This movie was just weird. It was kind of enjoyable by the end of it, though, by how weird it got. But Jason X, it's kind of another black sheep in the Friday the 13th franchise. What the fuck was this? But one of my favorites in the franchise is Freddy versus Jason. That's because Freddy Krueger is a much more interesting character than Jason Voorhees, because Jason Voorhees has no personality besides he likes to fuck shit up. So having Freddy Krueger in there with some comedy and some levity in the fight with Jason at the end of this movie is really entertaining. I remember seeing a bunch of clips from this when I was a kid, but I've never just sat down and watched the entire film. I would recommend this one just for the pure schlock that it is. Sure, there's no really good plot or anything like that, but it is entertaining, and that's what movies are at the end of the day. And then after 4 days of excruciating pain having to sit through all these movies from start to finish, we have the reboot from 2009 with the dude from Supernatural. It's just simply Friday the 13th. This is basically like what the recent Halloween remake was. It pretty much encapsulates the first 3 movies. It acts like the first movie happened, but then doesn't act like any of the other ones happened. And it was just a retread of everything. And the kills were even more mundane than some of the sequels in the Friday the 13th franchise. Didn't like that. And sure, it was executed fairly nicely, but it was totally forgettable, especially when you compare it to the originals. It just doesn't have that charm that the other ones have, and I'm pretty sure I already forgot this one immediately after I watched it, and I watched it like an hour ago. So what are my final takeaways after watching all 12 Friday the 13th movies for the first time? I would recommend staying away. These are pure, unadulterated schlock. If you like just some dude running around the woods killing people with a machete, I think you'll like it, but I don't think you have to watch all 12. Maybe just watch 1 or 2, and of those I'd recommend parts 4 and 6 most of all. Maybe the first one if you like some more plot-driven things. You don't need just Jason Voorhees. But this franchise kind of sucks, and it's never billed itself as anything more than just pure schlock. So if you like it, this Blu-ray box set cost me about 130 bucks. I would recommend it. It's kind of a cool collection from Shout Factory. But what is my final verdict to the Friday the 13th franchise? It is not a killer good time. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw here, you can check us out on Facebook or Instagram, and like, comment, and subscribe if you so choose. My name is Parker Reed. You've been watching PR Media. Keep supporting physical media, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
Jason's reign of terror is over. Friday the 13th, the final chapter.